The American pop star Lizzo has changed a lyric in one of her songs because it contained a word that was considered to be offensive about disabled people. Her track, Girls, I think I'm pronouncing that right, it's Girrrls, used a derogatory term which is based around a form of cerebral palsy. Lizzo has apologised and said the following: "Let me make one thing clear. I never want to promote derogatory language. As a fat black woman in America, I've had many hurtful words used against me, so I overstand the power words can have. I'm proud to say there's a new version of Girls with a lyric change. This is the result of me listening and taking action. As an influential artist, I'm dedicated to being part of the change I've been waiting to see in the world." To discuss this story, I'm delighted to be joined now by broadcaster and political commentator Paula London. Paula, you're so much more on the pulse of popular culture than me. I don't really know who Lizzo is, to be honest. She sounds perfectly nice. And I'm sure she didn't mean any offence when she used this word.
Well, I would hope she didn't mean offence, but at the end of the day, one of the most well-known sports people in the world, Tiger Woods, actually said that word himself, and he apologised, and she has a big team behind her. They must have been aware that this word is offensive in London,
it's a word that
in the UK.
begins with S, and people will know what the word is. But actually, from my understanding, it's less offensive in American context. We're so used to hearing that as a playground insult that we assume that maybe it's the same over there.
Well, there's a huge difference between British English and American English. For instance, the word fag, we use this as a cigarette. That's obviously a very different word in America. So they could argue, don't tell us what to say when you say a very offensive word. But, I have a huge empathy for the disabled community. A lot of diverse communities, I thought, actively look for words to be offended about on a daily basis, but the disabled community don't. And I have huge amounts of respect for them. If they're upset by a word, we need to look why they're upset and change it.
Do you think, though, that there are some situations where artists, and particularly writers, poets, musicians, they might want to use provocative language as part of the statement that they're making? I mean, I'll give you an example. There was a song by Michael Jackson many years ago called They Don't Care About Us, which used a word which is a known anti-Semitic slur, but he was using that word to make a point against racism. That was part of the point. It had a certain power. Do you think that artists should have that freedom to use whatever
I think artists should stay out of politics, one. And it's quite interesting that Cardi B, she waded into the argument with Lizzo, saying that what you said was perfectly fine, you shouldn't apologise. But that's coming from someone that uses a lot of smutty words in her music. Even Peter Andre was complaining that he caught his 14-year-old daughter sing along to WAP.
Yes.
So I think her words...
Let's not say what that stands for.
I definitely wouldn't. I think it's grotesque. I think
people
children...
know. People know.
Yeah, and I think it's awful. And I'm glad the Twitter community did forgive Lizzo.
Yes.
They did forgive her, and she changed the word within 48 hours. I don't believe in cancel culture, but she shouldn't have said it in the right place. She's a very well-known artist. She has a lot of PR people around her and management, so she should have known better.
So your view is that people should be free to say whatever they want, but they should also be criticised. People should be free to criticise.
It depends. An ableist slur, I have no time for those words. I think they're absolutely disgusting. Interestingly enough, idiot is apparently an ableist slur. And I use that word a lot. I've had quite a few idiot ex-boyfriends, etc. So I don't think it's bad to use that word. But I definitely would never, ever use the words that she used.
That's the point, isn't it? Because that's subjective then. So you're saying, these are the words that I find acceptable and the words I don't find acceptable. And she just might have a different set of rules. I don't know Lizzo, so I can't speak on her behalf. But, I'm always very wary of sort of leaping to judgment about the things that offend me. Because the things that offend me might not be the things that offend you, and vice versa.
But you have to think about, she's American, and Tiger Woods, as I said, he's one of the most well-known sportsmen in the world. He said that word. That made a lot of press, and he apologised. So her management would have known. They can't be stupid. They must have known, maybe we shouldn't use that word.
So do you think, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but do you think there's a cynical element to this? As in, we're all talking about Lizzo now, we're all talking about the song. Do you think there might be an element of, trying to get controversy?
Well, I mean, I know about PR. That's an awful way to try to get PR and to try to get record sales. Or, you don't even have record sales anymore. But I'm glad the disabled community have forgiven her, but they probably won't forget.
You think, I see. So there's a lot of anger still out there.
Well, I would have thought so, yeah. Because of what she's done, I'm not a fan of her music, but I definitely wouldn't be now. Even if she had some huge hit, I would be like, I remember what you said. So.
Yeah, but I suppose it depends on, again, it's about the individual. If you take Eminem, for instance, is a good example of an act who has used some quite openly, I'd say, misogynistic and homophobic, not just phrasing, but sentiments and ideas. But I see that as wrapped up very much in the persona that he is adopting through the music, not necessarily as an authentic attack on the gay community. Am I wrong about that?
I think you have to look at the timeline. I mean, I'm not up to date with Eminem. Again, he's not my... I mean, I'm not a huge fan of music, to be honest with you. I like to go to musicals, so I like Lionel Richie or The Drifters.
Well, Lionel Richie's
music.
never going to say anything offensive.
Well, no, of course not.
I don't think he's capable.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a big timeline. Things have changed. What you used to be able to say, you can't say anymore. You know, whether you say it in person or it's a lyric in your song. You need to think more.
Well, OK, so let's come on to... You mentioned Cardi B, and this is a very interesting one.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people in America, and particularly on the conservative right, are furious with Cardi B. And what they say is that Cardi B is like a role model.
Awful one.
People.
Awful one.
And you know, but again, I'm for artistic freedom. I think Cardi B should be able to sing about whatever she wants, use whatever words she wants. I also support your right to criticise her for doing so. Where I draw the line is censorship. I wouldn't like to see Cardi B censored. Would you like to see her censored for her songs?
Well, it's difficult. I think you have to parent your child. I mean, I don't want to bring Peter Andre into the conversation again.
Bring him in.
Let's bring him in. Peter, I hope you're watching. But he went to apparently his daughter Princess's bedroom that's 14 and heard her singing the lyrics to the WAP song and was horrified. She'd actually posted a TikTok apparently, and then she did remove it. You know, there should be, obviously you can never watch what your children are doing constantly, but for a 14-year-old girl to be singing those explicit words is awful.
Why do you think those songs always become very popular, don't they? They become very successful.
Maybe I'm prudish, but I just think, you know, those words are awful. And obviously, she was a stripper as well. You know,
was she?
Yes, and she's very vocal about that. And, you know, some of her dance videos and some of her lyrics, I just think if I had a child, I definitely wouldn't be letting them listen to her songs.
It is perennial, though.
I'd be very strict.
No, fair enough. But we had this with Madonna back in the day, back with the erotica video, back with Justify My Love. We had it with,
She wasn't as bad as Cardi B now.
Wasn't she?
No.
Really?
No.
I would have said Madonna's done some pretty sort of explicit things.
But she still did it with a bit of class, I feel. I think she can get away with it. I like Madonna, bless her. Madonna, well, she can do wrong. I mean, she should put more clothes on these days. She's definitely getting on.
It does feel like a lot of this comes down to taste, doesn't it? And
yes.
subjective views.
Yes.
Anyway, look,